Hello. One of the great features with iDirres is being able to print out envelopes and labels with ease. iDirres has a way of making sure that you don't waste paper, don't waste envelopes, and most importantly, you get the result you require onto the paper. So let me just show you a few things that we need to know before we start covering this topic in depth. If we go and select a user's record, so Mark Gibbons here, and we go to the address tab, we will notice that there are multiple addresses in the account, and this is one of the great features of iDirres, is the fact that it's very easy to add multiple addresses against the individual. But what I'd like to show you very briefly here is two things. When I clicked on this address here, you'll notice that the address type altered to home, and there's a tick called primary address. So let's just briefly cover it. Address types allow you to segment and categorize your addresses. So, for example, if you needed to send a letter to all home addresses, you quite literally select the home address and you could do that. Also, just out of interest, is this primary address. One address is promoted to be the number one address that you always deal with. It's a default setting. If there's only one address in the system, then automatically that becomes the default primary address. However, when you have multiple addresses, so for example, this address here is the delivery address, or this address here, which is the other address, well, you don't need to maybe say these are the default addresses. So we've said this address here, which is the home address, is the primary address. Just another note to caution on this as well is that you can add as many addresses as you need. So it's very important that you define your address types, and this is something you can do yourself in the administration console, and again there's a video detailing how to do that available. So that's the thing that we need to cover at this stage. You can store multiple addresses against an individual. Right, if I move back to the data grid, and you can either do this in all contacts or contacts, so we'll just use contacts for this particular example. I click on the grid, I select the name. I then go to Tools, Labels and Envelopes. I then select Envelopes. I'm going to print the barcode with the address. The barcode is actually the user's identification barcode from iDirres. That's actually very useful because if you have return mail or a post office that is operating on a slightly different level, what you can do is you can actually just get them to bleep the envelope on its return, and it will pull up the customer's details, and with contact resources linking to support calls and everything else, they'll be able to see who's dealing with that customer at that present time. So it'll actually allow you to automate your post room. A pretty impressive solution. There's a tick here that says use contact's primary address. As we discussed already, if the contact has a primary address, you could just send the letter by default to them. However, if you decide that you need to send it to another address, so for example, other was one of the options on my account there. If I take other, that now means that I will send this envelope, will be printed to send to the other address. I click next. The envelope type. We have a massive amount of envelopes that you can select. We've tried to code as many up as possible, and this should mean that you have no problems in finding an envelope that will do your requirements. Print envelope branding image. iDirres allows you to add an envelope branding image to the bottom left hand corner of the envelope. This is very useful to allow clients to see latest offers, and puts you in the category of the big companies that do this routinely. Print the return address. Your company will be set up with the addresses that your company has, and if you wish, you can actually print the return address straight onto the envelope to one pass print in operation. You put the envelope in and it goes through and it will print all relevant detail. iDirres gives you an option to select which address if you have multiple company addresses yourself. So for example, I'm going to say it's our main road address that we want the return to come to. I click next, I then click finish, and that will then load the printing process, and that's my envelope on its way. Thank you for watching.